This is VOA Africa.
Good evening, I'm Esther Gido. It's Thursday, October 24th. This is Africa 54. Another partial victory in ending polio. We'll explain. Sudan's Finance Minister Ibrahim El-Badawi discusses his vision for his country's economic development. And Nigeria's traditional incense industry thrives thanks to social media marketing. It's World Polio Day today, and the World Health Organization is making a global appeal to raise awareness and resources to eradicate the crippling disease. The initiative to end polio has been a long haul since 1988. The good news, however, is that the disease has been reduced by 99.9%. But as we hear from VOA's Carol Pearson, the polio virus is stubbornly hanging on in Pakistan and Afghanistan.
The global effort to end polio is a massive program. It relies on global funding, volunteer vaccinators, negotiations with political and religious leaders at all levels, and parents who have faith in the vaccine. In Kenya, facts about polio are taught in schools. Children are even taught what to tell their parents.
What kind of advice can you give to the parents? Yes?
If his or her child does not get vaccination, he or she may be sick or be paralyzed. Yes.
Clap for him.
The international efforts are paying off. The prevalence of the disease has declined by 99.9%. Nigeria had its last case of polio 3 years ago. Nigeria and all of Africa may be declared polio-free sometime in 2020. There used to be 3 strains of the virus. Type 2 was eradicated in 2015. Health officials now say type 3 has been eradicated as well.
This will be the second type of 3 types to be eradicated, leaving only 1 type that continues to circulate in the world.
It's here, at the border between Pakistan and Afghanistan, where large numbers of people cross from one country to another, and where the wild polio virus spreads. Protecting migrant children from getting polio is a full-time job. Both countries saw cases increase from last year.
But the reality is, both countries are essentially one epidemiological block. There's so much population movement. The same virus family is being ping-ponged back and forth across the border with population movements.
And that is the main challenge. People have families on both sides of the border and visit back and forth. A second challenge is that the Taliban now allows vaccines to be given only at immunization centers. Still, another challenge comes from the program's success. The number of cases has dropped dramatically, and the eradication program now has to address other urgent needs like clean water. The Pandex says the program has always adapted.
UNICEF, in particular, has a strategy for both Afghanistan and Pakistan to provide these complementary services. And Rotary, for many years now, has been working with Coca-Cola in Pakistan, providing water filtration systems in some of these highest risk areas.
Those involved in the Global Polio Eradication Initiative have traveled a road that is longer and harder than was expected in 1988 when the program began. It's far from over, but the partners in this campaign have not given up. Carol Pearson, VOA News, Washington.
10 years ago, Nigeria accounted for half of the world's polio cases. Following an aggressive vaccination program, the West African nation is now on the verge of being declared polio-free. Despite the milestone, many polio survivors in Nigeria are left to struggle with their disabilities. But one survivor has found a way to provide support and hope for thousands. Timothy Obiezu reports from Abuja.
Ayuba Gufwan contracted polio when he was 5 years old, and it led to paralysis in both legs. Like other polio survivors, he struggled but eventually became a lawyer. With money from his practice and donations, he opened the Beautiful Gate Handicapped People's Center, which manufactures wheelchairs that are distributed for free to survivors.
Our desire was basically to bridge the gap between polio eradication and the rehabilitation of polio survivors. The focus of polio eradication is prevention-centered. There was little or nothing that was done to take care and to ameliorate the suffering of polio victims.
For more than 10 years, Gufwan's center has helped about 18,000 survivors in Nigeria, Chad, Niger, and Cameroon. Ibrahim Umar received a free wheelchair and now works at the facility.
I
started working here in 2016. Before then, I had no prior experience or training, but I've been getting a lot of help from them.
Nigeria has not recorded a single case of polio in 3 years, a major improvement since 2012 when the African nation accounted for more than half of the world's infection. But the Abuja-based disability rights advocacy group, DRAC, says 40% of Nigeria's 27 million disabled people are polio survivors. At a demonstration to raise awareness of their plight, the advocacy group says polio eradication is incomplete unless the disabilities of survivors are addressed.
Every year, whenever we're commemorating polio, the focus is on polio eradication. Make sure all children get vaccinated. Make sure mothers are vaccinating their children. Make sure we kick polio out. But nobody ever thinks about those who have survived polio and are living with one form of disability or the other and going through various challenges. So for us, that's also a priority.
Nigeria's National Assembly has passed into law a bill to ensure that disabled people, including polio survivors, have better access. Meanwhile, survivors like Gufwan are working to help those who have suffered the effects of polio to improve their lives. Timothy Obiezu for VOA News, Abuja.
Now, prominent Ethiopian activist Jawar Mohammed is calling for calm on Thursday amid protests that have killed 16 people and are challenging Nobel Prize-winning Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed in his political heartland. On Tuesday night, police surrounded Jawar's house, prompting hundreds of young men to gather around his home in support. Protests spread to other parts of the capital and other cities, where police fired tear gas and bullets to disperse them. Now, for more on this developing story, I'm joined in the studio by Tizita Belacho, VOA Horn of Africa Managing Editor. Tizita, welcome back to Africa 54.
Thank you.
Now, I'm looking at this story, and Jawar is said to have actually propelled Prime Minister Abiy to where he is today by organizing protests before when he took over in 2018. But again, the Prime Minister's speech on Tuesday in Parliament, warning of foreigners or media owners who own foreign passports, you know, not being tolerated, without naming names. What exactly is going on, and where do we stand as we speak?
Well, right now, as your introduction indicates, Jawar himself, along with Oromo Leadership Umbrella, there is an organization of political organizations that are operating in Oromia. Together with them, he called for calm. So the situation in most Oromia towns right now is supposed to be calm. Before that, federal security has also entered in these towns, and the road was blocked everywhere in Oromia. Now they are removing the blockage, and also religious leaders and traditional leaders, elders have been asking for calm. So the situation is reportedly calm right now.
So is Jawar still in his house?
Jawar is in Addis Ababa, yes. He made that call from Addis Ababa with other leaders, Oromo leaders.
Is it keep that story on your fingertips?
Yes.
And inform us as it develops. Thank you very much. Thank you. All right, Tizita Belacho is managing editor with VOA's Amharic service. Now, a new government took over in Sudan 6 weeks ago The country's finance minister, Ibrahim El-Badawi, who was recently in Washington, sat down with VOA's Peter Clotty and talked about the objective of his visit and vision for his government.
The first stage is stabilizing the economy and igniting growth. And as economists, we know that igniting growth requires dealing with major distortions in the macro and institutions. So stabilizing the budget, raising the revenue, managing liquidity in a way that allows you to avoid recourse to borrowing from the central bank, which is essentially printing money, and then restructuring the financial sector, and then doing some specific programs to address the unemployment of youth. Also in the medium to short run, we are planning to launch an agricultural census.
How do you intend attracting foreign investors to come and invest in the agricultural economy that you spoke about? And what specific measures are you putting in place to make it attractive for them to come?
We will be establishing an investment authority that will review all the impediments to investment and improve the investment climate and the business environment. We'll engage the Sudanese private sector, which is really a very competent private sector, and to actually link the Sudanese private sector with foreign investors, build the soft infrastructure in terms of the legal and regulatory laws and what have you, in order to invite investors through a variety of instruments.
So you are surrounded by a few landlocked countries. How do you take advantage of that to generate funds, raise revenue to support these projects?
Yes, actually, we think just once we stabilize the macroeconomy, and we hope to do this in the next 8 months or 6 months, and review the investment code, and hopefully reaching the stage of one window stop shop for licensing of investors and so on, I think the potential for Sudan is unlimited. I think in particular, we would like to present the Sudanese Red Sea coast as a regional entry port for the landlocked economies around us.
So with these structures and policies you plan to implement, what is the time period do you think this can be achieved? Because you have a pretty short window for it as a transitional government. How do you intend doing this?
We would like to start, and we believe in the saying that charity starts at home, to actually focus on reforming our institutions. And some of these institutions and some of these laws and regulations, such as the revenue mobilization and so on, it can be dealt with in the first 8 months. And then, while at the same time working on the issues related to the SST, and we have good reasons to be hopeful on that, and then we immediately move into opening the economy for investment. And already, by the way, at this meeting, especially from the Arab funds, and particularly the Arab Fund for Economic and Social Development, which is led by a towering figure, Mr. Abdul Latif Al-Hamad, we already have a plan for moving forward with a menu of investment in multiple stages.
Sudan's Finance Minister Ibrahim El-Badawi speaking to VOA. We're excited to hear what you think about Africa 54. Join the discussion on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We are also streaming our broadcast live on Facebook. Please watch and share our show with your friends. Also, check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Still to come, how social media exposure is helping boost sales of Nigerian incense. We'll be back.
On Our Voices, we're talking about the news and issues you're talking about, sharing stories of development and growth across Africa, around the world, and in our lives. Topics that inform, empower, and change the rules. It's time for Our Voices with me, Haiti Adams Fitzpatrick,
and Hadiza Kiari,
and Ayan Bior,
and Orion Itangi Shaka.
It's time for Our Voices.
Could be French,
English,
Portuguese,
Bantu,
Arabic.
It is the beat.
The African beat that counts.
The beat does all the translations.
It cuts across all languages and gives us the understanding that this is the African beat.
It is so distinct
and adhesive.
It binds us together.
African beat on the Voice of America. For more information, visit our website at www.voanews.com/AfricanBeat.
I am Shaka Sali, host and senior editor of VOA's international call-in talk show, Straight Talk Africa.
Today we'll examine the tobacco industry.
We pretty much touch on anything that you can think of. Politics, health issues, human rights issues, you name it, we talk about it. The issues that we discuss are pertinent to most people on the African continent. A very, very rare and unique opportunity to interact with their leaders.
I'm Clara Frank, and here's what's trending. The final trailer for Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker is offering montages of epic cosmic combat and a fleeting glimpse of the late Carrie Fisher as Princess Leia. The movie, which opens December 20th, is the last chapter in the now 9-part Skywalker saga. Monday's trailer coincided with tickets going on sale for the movie. Adam Tickets said the film sold more tickets in its first hour than any movie in its 7-year history, besting Avengers Endgame. Next up, at the London Baby Show, the latest in wearable technology means parents can record a continuous stream of data from their baby, including temperature, oxygen saturation, and even position in the cot. The monitor clips onto a baby's shirt and is fastened securely. It communicates wirelessly with the hub, the smartphone app, and the smartwatch on the parent's wrist. What about smart socks? This wearable baby monitor is worn on the infant's foot. As for transportation, the latest baby buggies are sporting full hydraulics. And finally, as esports and the gaming industry continue to boom globally, a growing population of Arab youth are vying to leave their mark, particularly players in the Gulf. Yalla Esports, a Dubai-based esports team that was founded in 2016, has pushed its way from a hobby team into a full-time professional team and is already qualified to 3 international tournaments. The UK's biggest gaming festival, Insomnia, recently came to Dubai as part of the International Exports Federation's efforts to expand the industry. And that's what's trending today.
U.S. President Donald Trump and his supporters in Congress are seeking to undermine Democrat-led efforts to build up a case for the president's impeachment. Trump dismissed the impeachment inquiry as just another case of a witch hunt against him, while the Republicans are disparaging the investigative process as secretive and undemocratic. Critics say the Republican effort is aimed at taking away attention from recent damaging testimonies on the administration's dealings with Ukraine. VOA's Ladza Hook has more.
In his address to a conference Wednesday in Pennsylvania, the president glorified his energy policy and U.S. economic growth, referring to the impeachment only vaguely as part of a general criticism against the Democrats.
They can't beat us at the ballot box. They cannot beat us at the ballot box. So they want to try and beat us the old-fashioned way, which is not very nice. They are a nasty group of people.
The remark came just hours after a turbulent morning on Capitol Hill, where a group of Republican lawmakers stormed a closed-door deposition in the House Intelligence Committee space. The lawmakers were not members of the congressional panels conducting the investigation and had no right to demand entry, but they argued that the case was too important for the investigations to be held behind closed doors.
We are trying to have some transparency to this process. I represent nearly 1 million Floridians who are asking me my thoughts on this process, and yet I can't relay to them anything except what's being leaked to the media.
The disturbance delayed the scheduled deposition by several hours. Critics say the upheaval was created to distract public attention from the damage inflicted by a deposition given to lawmakers Tuesday by former U.S. Ambassador to Ukraine Bill Taylor. The highly respected career diplomat handpicked by Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, confirmed a whistleblower's allegation that Trump linked U.S. aid to Ukraine to the country's willingness to cooperate in an effort to damage Trump's political rival.
In my 10 short months in Congress, it's not even noon, right? And this is my most disturbing day in Congress so far.
Taylor's lengthy testimony gave pause even to some of Trump's own party members, prompting an angry tweet by the president in which he says the Republicans who do not support him are worse than the Democrats. A federal judge ordered the State Department on Wednesday to release Ukraine-related records, including communications between Secretary Pompeo and President Trump's personal lawyer, Rudy Giuliani. Zlarica Ho, VOA News, Washington.
European Union leaders are deciding on another extension to Brexit after lawmakers in Britain frustrated Prime Minister Boris Johnson's plan to leave the bloc by October 31st. After previously pledging to leave by that deadline, do or die, Johnson now seems determined to seek an election as soon as possible. But as Henry Ridgwell reports, it might not be that simple.
Another Brexit deadline slipping away, another British request for more time. Prime Minister Boris Johnson insisted Wednesday that his plan is still to leave on 31st October.
I don't think the people of this country want a delay. I don't want a delay. I intend to press on, but I'm afraid we now have to see what our EU friends will decide on our behalf.
Johnson was forced by law to ask the EU for an extension, even though he didn't want one, after failing to pass his Brexit deal in Parliament last Saturday. The British leader then tried to rush the legislation through Parliament with just days to go before the deadline. While agreeing to the deal in principle, MPs Tuesday voted against this timetable.
Essentially, Boris Johnson was asking MPs to decide in 3 days what will impact at least a generation.
So Britain awaits the EU's decision. EU Council President Donald Tusk recommended that member states approve a 3-month extension, but that could be shortened if the Brexit deal is approved in London. If that is the EU's offer, Boris Johnson has indicated he would push for an early election.
He's threatened a general election but doesn't necessarily have power to it. We might see a resignation or we might see another motion for a general election, essentially calling on the House of Commons to bring an early general election. The most important qualification in all of this, though, is as of right now, the UK is withdrawing on a no-deal basis on the 31st of October 2019.
The EU doesn't want to be blamed for a no-deal Brexit.
I think the EU should focus on having as constructive partnership with the UK as possible. Now, those discussions will not always be easy, but it seems to me that, in EU's mindset, UK has actually already left.
The withdrawal agreement was meant to be the easy bit. Negotiating the future relationship, likely to be a free trade agreement, will be much tougher.
We will face ratifications also in national parliaments. And this is something that we can't really, predict how that would be used in the domestic politics, because obviously there are different dynamics in all 27 member states.
When do we want it? Now! What do we want? When do we want it? Now!
Opposition MPs warn even if the deal is passed, Britain could face another cliff edge at the end of next year when the transition period expires if there's no free trade agreement in place. In Britain and Brussels, there is Brexit fatigue, but this is just the beginning. Henry Ridgwell for VOA News, London.
In the Nigerian city of Maiduguri, the popular incense kaji is a cherished local tradition. Kaji, made from generations-old recipes, is used during important ceremonies such as weddings to dispel evil spirits. But with the advance of technology and social media, the market for the incense is growing. Chika Odua reports from Maiduguri.
Fatima Mohammed Goni is at the largest market in Maiduguri to buy the raw materials for a local incense known as kaji. She seeks out scented oils and aromatic wood. Fatima makes kaji using a family recipe, opening up her business in 2016.
I started selling in small quantities to people in Maiduguri.
The use of incense has been a part of the local Kanuri people's culture for at least 1,000 years. Cultural researcher Bukhar Chabal says kaji is used during burials, weddings, and baby naming ceremonies to scare away so-called evil spirits.
Kaji is a very important aspect of, our existence as Kanuri people. Any house you go where you didn't find kaji, they say, what is wrong with this man? Let's say a wife gives birth, to either a baby girl or baby boy. The first thing they will do after, washing out all this, they say, please bring kaji,
There are more than 800 kaji shops in Maiduguri's main market, but the centuries-old tradition is finding new markets through social media. Fatima Mustafa sells her kaji online and says social media helps her reach new and younger clients in Chad, Niger, and as far away as Britain.
I started with social media because it's the only way to get many people. They can come to Instagram to get varieties. When I post on Instagram, I use hashtags to target people that I want.
Kaji is accessible to just about anyone. It can sell for as low as 50 cents and go for as high as $150. The expensive products are packaged and sold in beautiful bottles like these, but the luxurious incense may pose health risk.
Dr. Bukhar Baki says the incense is sometimes used in a way that can cause harm.
Most of the time people tend to use them in environments that are somehow confined. So when you use, smoke in a confined environment, you are likely to get one or two effects that may not be completely healthy, like maybe worsening certain respiratory disorders. People who are allergic to them actually can have, irritation of the eyes, excessive sneezing.
Despite the risk, Goni says sales of the traditional incense are on the rise as the clientele and the tradition spread beyond Maiduguri. Chika Odua for VOA News, Maiduguri, Nigeria.
And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, have a good evening.